Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk to Me Africa. This is a special one. I want to say thank you to my panelists today for taking the time to be on the show. We shall be talking about identity. Identity. What is identity to you? What is it to me? What is identity for real? And so I think it was Q who told me that this is a conversation we really have to talk about, especially between the two groups I have on the show today, Africans and African Americans. So I have two Africans and two African Americans talk about identity. I will start by introducing my wonderful, beautiful, fabulous panel. Let me start with Alvaro. Alvaro, welcome. Where are you joining us from today?
I am here in Dallas, Texas.
In Dallas, Texas. Alvaro is an IT professional. He's been in IT for the past 8 years. He is also a TikToker, and your TikTok name is Bossman202021. Interesting. What do you talk about on TikTok?
Different topics that's going on in today's society. It's really, just different aspects in this world. I mean, we talk about politics as well.
Mhm.
The race going on with the presidency. Um, life is life and the economy,
Everything.
so yeah,
Okay.
everything.
That's good to know.
I create a safe space for everyone to come and talk.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the show. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here. And Alvaro is here as an African American male. And now let me go over to Kwame. She says you can call her Q if you cannot pronounce her name. Welcome to Talk to Me Africa, Miss Q.
Hi, how you guys doing?
Doing great. So you are founder, CEO, creator, and host of Pillow Talk with T podcast.
Yes, I have
I
a
like that.
lot of titles under my belt, but yes.
Yes. Yeah, I know you do have a lot on your belt. You are also a multifaceted entrepreneur and influencer, and you are a plus size model and curvy ambassador. How's that going for you?
Yes, absolutely, I am. We have to make sure we put out the positivity in regards when it comes to the plus size community of women, and just to make sure that they're loving who they are and the body that they're in, because confidence is most definitely key.
That's wonderful. So you're here as an African American female. Welcome to Talk to Me Africa. I'm so glad you could make it today.
Thank you.
All right. And to my sister from another mother, I've never met her in person, Dr. Lillian Ndangam. Welcome back to Talk to Me Africa.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's good
Of
to be here.
course. Yeah, Lillian,
Joining you from Colorado.
Yeah, from Colorado. Oh, yeah. Kwame, where are you joining us from? I forgot to ask you.
I'm actually, and it's pronounced Kwamia.
Kwame, okay.
Yes. So I'm actually from New Jersey, but
New Jersey.
will soon be relocating to the Texas area.
Look at that, going to meet your brother. Anyway, back to Lillian. She holds a PhD in journalism and mass media studies. She is author of a book that is titled Mungaka Word Book, which is a picture book that is aimed at giving speakers of her native language, which is called Mungaka, the opportunity to increase their Mungaka vocabulary competency. Yep, she is a promoter of her own ethnic language, of course, Mungaka, and also an avid supporter of culture. So welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
It's
good
good
to
to be
have you.
here. I look forward to an interesting conversation.
Awesome.
These are issues that we experience and talk about in different circles. So to have the opportunity to engage like this, it's welcome.
Yeah. And Brendan Bante, wow, Shufai. Brendan is an innovative strategist and result-oriented growth marketing leader and digital marketing expert. Welcome to Talk to Me Africa, Shufai. Oh, you are muted.
Thank you, Mabel. It is good to reconnect and on this platform. We know ourselves way, way back. So thank you for the invitation.
Brendan and I belonged to a theater group back in University of Buea, and we used to do some drama theater presentation on poetry and English, whatever, back in the day at the University of Buea. So good to have you. You're here today as a title holder as Shufai, which is a traditional title from the Northwest region of Cameroon. I know you're joining us from Minnesota. So tell us a little bit more about your title, Shufai.
Yes, thank you for that question. Right now, I know it is hard to get away from my legal name, But since we're here to talk culture, talk identity right now, traditionally, I am no longer Brendan Bante that you knew. Now, I will be called Brendan Bante when I die and they are putting me into the ground. That's because the title doesn't die. People die. That's when I will revert to Brendan that you used to know. So right now, I am Shufai Ngamansa America. And this is a part of the pantheon of titles from the Nso culture. A Shufai falls in line beneath our paramount chief. When you have a paramount chief, then you have the sub chiefs that we call the Fons. So you have the Fon on Salt, then you have the Fons, you have the Shufais, and then the Fais, and then you have the Shays, and it's a whole empirical structure, and that is where the Shufai falls in.
Wow, quite appropriate. I think I'll just stay with you for a little bit and ask you, since you're here as the Shufai and also, representing our culture from Africa, what would you say, or who would you say is an African?
You see, that's a very good question. And the concept of the Africa, it's been historically defined for us and not by us. So I'm glad that we're talking about this, because when you even go to the etymology of the word Africa, we did not grow up calling ourselves, historically, we didn't call ourselves Africans. So Africa as a term, has Phoenicians, it has Roman, it has Greek roots, right? And so it took prominence with the colonialists who wanted to balkanize the continent and break it up and share like this big candy jar in which somebody would just come and pick something up and pick what they like, right? So, but we've come to welcome the concept of Africa and African and define it for ourselves as a people that have a shared history of colonialism, of slavery, of imperialism. And then, along the way, historically again, because history is a beautiful thing, we've come to want to, within the realm of Pan-Africanism, into say we have to define who we are as a people, and not let others define us. All right. And so the concept of Africa, therefore, to us now, as a people, is, I would say, has, we call it diversity in identity. Because within the African construct, different nations that have been created by the Africans, by the colonialists, okay, have different experiences. And so within those experiences, within those cultures, and within those socio-political environments, people see themselves, right, differently from other people. But we have a bigger umbrella that is Africa, which is the geographical the continent itself. Okay. And I know we're going to be diving into this within the talk.
A lot more, yeah.
Geographically, but there is diversity in the identity of the African.
I like that. Lillian, who's African?
I think of African by geography, ancestry. So someone who was born in any of the 50 nations of the continent, right? And where we come from, we haven't really looked at ourselves as, we haven't really defined our identity as Africans,
right? Because
we live in these 50 different nations, right? So when you're on the continent, you're likely to say, I'm Cameroonian, I'm Nigerian, I'm Botswana. And I think we then use that all-encompassing African identity when we are out of the continent and we encounter other identities. But there are other circumstances that we use it within the continent. Like if I travel to South Africa and, I'm not considered African enough, which is what I've experienced. But then you remind me, you are all part of this wide, big continent called Africa. So Africa to me is defined by geography, by ancestry, by birth, in terms of that geography where you were born on the continent.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I did ask that question to both of you because you know, came in as an African and you also as an African now. Miss Q, you are here as an African American. Who is an African American to you?
African American to me is someone basically who is born in the nation of America. Basically anyone who is as we put it in our native or either over here in America, Americanized, who was born, bred, raised, and you know, created over here in America. That's to me what African American is. But also it could be also in a way of sometimes people who don't even be born in America who end up coming over here. In a way, I have seen people transition to end up being American. So it's just the way of their way of thinking, just their verbiage, they whole source of just what they're built of, just like their body language, how they talk, speak, walk, talk, or whatever. But I just feel like majority of African American people are people who are actually born over here in the United States of America.
Okay. Interesting. You did mention something I was hoping to hear, but before I ask you what I want to ask, let me go to Alvaro. Alvaro, who is African American?
Like Pillow has said, I think African American is people that's born here since day one. You know, they're born, raised, their families are here. You know, we as a whole, we from here. We know the culture, you know, and yeah, that's majority about it. I think African Americans are people that's born and raised in this
So
state.
when I listen to all four of you, nobody talked about race. You know, African Americans, you didn't mention skin color, Miss Q. You didn't mention skin color, Alvaro. Does that tell me that somebody from it doesn't matter where they come from, if they're born here? So wait, let me rephrase. Does that mean that African American does not have much to do with your skin color?
No, it doesn't.
Can I answer that? I
Yes,
want
go
to
ahead.
answer that because I'm African American, but I'm mixed with Spanish. I'm Salvadorian as well. And so when I took a trip over to Dominican Republic, I thought, and this is me because I haven't been to that country, I thought that people were my dad color, white. Never would have thought that people look like me. Majority of the people that's in that country looks like me, my skin color. So I don't base it on the skin color because you don't know, you know what I'm saying? They could be, you know, brown, but they could be from Haitian. They could be from, you know, different parts of the country, but they don't probably consider themselves, you know, African American. They're probably a different part of the country. They're probably different. And how can I say it? How can I say it? They probably a different nationality, you know. And so it changed my mind when I went over there because I was like, oh, I thought there was, you know, many, but no, they're different complexion.
Yes.
Different complexion.
Yeah, Miss Q, go ahead.
Yeah, so I definitely, it doesn't consider of again race. You know, I think the race came in when we could go back in slavery when they started dividing us. You know, other than that, but when I sit there and say American, I don't look as American, okay, you're black, you're white, you're Hispanic, you're this and that. I look at us as a whole, because again, to me, it doesn't care about the color of your skin, even though we are in the world that people do care and it matters to them, and it's very much segregated continuously at the 5,000 years later. We still segregate it in some way, shape, or form, even if it's an underlying tone. And if you don't pay attention, you will miss it because there is still some racism still going on. But when it comes to American or just African American, again, there's different shades of African American. It's light skin, brown skin, darker than that. We got people who's a kind complexion, and he's an African man. So that's over here in America. We got Tyrese It's the same shade as ACON or like little lighter. So I don't really care about that. And again, it's about the fact that they put in our head to divide us when it comes to this right here. Because again, if we all cut each other, guess what's gonna happen? Same color blood. We're gonna bleed the same color.
Wow. Okay. Well, yeah, I'll save some of that,
I had to add that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Race is really like very simplistic and very misleading concept to use, because it really simplifies someone's identity, right, by reducing it to skin color. And our identities are more complex and nuanced than skin color. And to just ignore that is to, by using the term race, is to really ignore that, humanity and what makes that person unique. So I think I'm happy that nobody here used that term in talking. We used more of our culture and upbringing. So I think to focus on race really ignores the diversity of our identities.
I really do like that nobody did focus on that, because I was waiting to hear, like, wait, are we what we are, or are we what people think we are,
race,
or what we think we really are, because when people bring race, it's like they're telling us who we think we should be, or who they think that we should be. But listening to all four of you, I'm like, wow, nobody seemed to talk about, what the world has been addressing as, identity, or
the world seems to think that only Black people have race and everybody else doesn't, right? Don't you see that?
Yes, I agree.
That is the social construct there that is really, really misleading. It's really problematic.
That's right.
It is a very, if I may,
go ahead, Brendan.
When you come
Shufai, you are Shufai until you just said Brendan. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So when it comes down to it, then the African identity, or even the African American identity, listening to that, then becomes a very complex, multifaceted concept, right? That encompasses both our histories, our culture, right? Our community that we where we grew up, and even our ethnic backgrounds, right? And our political philosophies, because politics doesn't necessarily mean blue or red or whatever we call here, because every human being is a political animal, right? So it is a very multifaceted, complex term, and it's been reduced into a very simplistic form for various reasons by who is doing the defining, right? And so when we think identity, therefore, and I'm shifting here to who do I see myself? Who did we as Africans see ourselves before the coming of the colonialists or the white man? We did not see ourselves as Black. In fact, if we were to ask that, what do you look like? We will not call ourselves Black.
Exactly.
Okay. In fact, we did not call ourselves African. So when you come down to it, the person that, one of my favorite authors then that, talks about identity in the way that makes sense to me as someone who is promoting the culture that is our culture is Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie.
Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie.
And this is what she said. She said, I am Nigerian because a white man created Nigeria and gave me that identity. I am Black because the white man constructed Black to be as different as possible from his white. But I was Igbo before the white man came.
Yeah.
My point is that the only authentic identity for the African is the tribe.
The ethnic group.
Ask me, I don't always, who are you? I say, I'm So. In fact, I don't even call myself Cameroonian. I call myself So or Bansa.
That's your ethnic group. Yeah.
That is who we are as a people. No one is defining that for me. So this conversation is for us to begin to shape what people call us, because how they call us begin to put us in a particular demographic, in a particular
box,
structure or a box.
Right.
for very specific reasons, which are never good.
Right.
Never.
He coming somewhere.
So the white man, you know, the colonial
I don't call
masters.
myself black. Why do you want to call myself? Is that
You're not.
why
Yeah,
I
you
see
call
myself-
yourself
I'm
so you're not
why
black.
calling me black. And then that term black, the language that is being used, which is the English language, and the English, you know, when you think about it historically, and that's why history is a very big thing in defining identity and defining all of these things. The English, we are at the forefront of colonialism and imperialism. So black is bad. Black monkey, black this, a devil is painted black, everything black. So you should see yourself
That's bad.
You are below.
Yeah.
So that leads to this concept of the white supremacy. So if the white is supreme, then where is black? Black is as far away from white as it can possibly be. So I don't want anybody to call me black.
That is deep. I like that you have gone into identity a little bit here, which is what I want to talk about next. Right now, when you all defined who you are as African or African American, it sounded a little bit different. The way that Shufai talked about himself as African from the way that Alvaro talked about himself as African American is different. Where do we draw the line between the two of us, you know, Africans and African Americans? What is the difference? If we're all the same.
To me, they all the same. There's no difference. It's the fact that the only difference is the fact that I was born in America and my brothers and sisters was born over there in our home continent of Africa. That's and we also speak a different dialogue. That's the only difference. Other than that, when I sit there, and again, this is something that I wanted to wait to share once I got on here, because my dad is African, my mom is African American. So I am basically too. And again, but my dad would tell you, God rest his soul, he passed away 2 months ago. He would sit there and say, no, you're African. That's you're African, no matter what. You was born in America. You are who I am. You are a Nigerian woman from Lagos. You are Igbo. That's who you are. And I stand in that, because again, he who I'm from.
Alvaro, you're going to say something. Yes, go ahead, Alvaro.
Yeah, I want to touch on that, because me and my sister, we was talking about this same situation, and I don't see it no different. We were talking about, I think everybody is from Africa. And we go all the way back. Our ancestors was from there. You know what I'm saying? And then going all the way back, they moved people from place to place. So, you know, we have people from here that's from there. You know, it's all the same. If we, like she said, if we do a DNA test, our bloodline is there.
Absolutely.
So it's no different.
It seems to hurt, right? Like when I was into Shufai speak, like it seems to hurt that people are referring to me as something that I am not. Why is it so important for people to know that you are from So and not from Igbo, or you are from here? Why is that so important to you? Why can't they just say, okay, we're all black? Why is identity so particular? Let me go to Lillian.
I think it's important to make those distinctions are important in defining who you are, right? In Cameroon, I wouldn't say, you know, I would probably call myself Bali, and he will call himself a sort person, right? And it's important in defining who you are, because that is your identity within that context, within that national big nation that we have. An Igbo person would want to know that, you know, they are Igbo. A Yoruba person would proudly, someone said that the Yorubas are the loudest in Africa. They would loudly proclaim their Yoruba identity and not claim any other. Those ethnic identities are what we have known. And that is what we have grown up with, right? We don't encounter race as an identity until we move out and we come to America, we go to Europe, and then we encounter racial identities in the sense that we knew ourselves as Igbo, Yoruba, Maasai, and all that. And then we come to a different, environment like this, and all of us now are considered Black. And that's the identity that we are supposed, Black or African American. And that is the identity that this society sees or labels us as, right? Mm-hmm. But then we don't have the same shared cultural experiences and history as the African Americans.
I love that. We don't have the same shared experiences. Yeah.
Yes,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. We don't. The African American experience is different from the African experience. Mm-hmm. There's slavery here. We had colonialism. The trauma of both is, long lasting. So the fine line, I think, the distinction between Africans and African American is between that cultural, that shared, that experience mm-hmm. of one having African descent, born in America, to a society that is racialized, and that person has the experience of having been enslaved for hundreds of years by a group of people within this country mm-hmm. that then, sees them as inferior. That experience, that inferiority that was considered by the white man is also what brought them to Africa as colonial masters, and then they took over. So we have that, but innately, the way we have been, our history is a history of people who are defined more along ethnic identities. And we hold on to that because we're proud of our languages, our culture, mm-hmm. And how we carry ourselves. And we only adapt these other identities when we move out and we encounter different, social identities like mm-hmm. that.
So let's bring in the word culture, which you mentioned just now, culture and identity, right? Can we talk about identity without talking about culture? For example, the way if you look at me, if you saw a picture of me right now without me speaking, what would you say I am? African, probably, right? Because of the way I am dressed. So can we talk about identity without talking about culture, the way I look, the way I dress, the way I eat, the way I speak? Do those two come together? I'm asking because those of us from Africa who have had kids in America, they don't speak like we do. So if you hear my child speaking, you'll be like, maybe he's African American, maybe he's not. So can we separate these two? Can you talk about your identity without your culture? Because my child doesn't speak like an African, which is a culture, that language. But now my child speaks like an American. But who is that child for real? So can we talk about identity without talking about culture?
I don't know if we can really, to me, I don't know if you can really talk about that without talking about culture, because again, identity to me, again, it's like, it comes hand in hand. Because like, for instance, like your son is probably how I am. Like you and my dad would speak and you guys would talk, and then me and him will be speaking, and they'd think like, nah, that's not their children. There's no way that that's their kids. And it's like, then we had to look at them like, yes, that's our mom and that's our dad. Like, and sometimes I had to convince people. But again, I also in college, I had to tell people, but Africa, that is my culture. That is my heritage. That's where I come from. And the things that even though I mixed up with American food, with African food, but that's the culture. That's the culture, because both my mom and dad made sure I knew where I came from and what was inside me running through my bloods. And I don't think we could really separate the identity with the culture, because again, then who are you then? Who are you?
I like that. Yeah. Yeah. Shufa, you want to add to that?
Yes. I think you that is very important. What pronounce it for me, please. I don't want to.
Just call her Q.
I want to phone name because it's very beautiful.
Kwame. I got it right?
Yes.
Kwame.
It's the culture is intrinsically important, right? We even say, you want to say hello, baby, and then
it's okay. Hi, I've met you in person.
Okay. okay? I'll have a call right
Yeah,
now.
it's fine.
Right, can you now close the door? Thank you, Lord. You wanted to come say hello?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, she's the fourth. I
By
have
the way, she held the
four.
flag last weekend at a cultural event, proudly running around the African flag from African countries. That's what we do for the children. Anyway, go
Yes.
ahead, Shufai.
So, culture is really a very complex system of very shared attributes. And you cannot talk identity without talking culture.
Culture. Mm-hmm.
Because within culture now, you start breaking things down to the traditions, the religion, the food, the language, right? What do people do, right? The communal experiences of the people. And those things are very, very important.
Yes.
One thing that the white colonialists and slave traders wanted to do first was to kind of wipe the slate clean as the first step, the dehumanization of our people.
Mm-hmm.
And it started with the naming. They had to give you a new name.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to truly make sure you are zero, and then they begin to get you to see and to think and to feel how they wanted you to feel. Right? As cattle. So culture, baby, no, baby, go see mommy right now. No, please, go see grandma, please. White paper, love. I told you not to disturb me because I'm having a call right now. Right?
All right, Brenda, you can take care of the baby. We can come back to you in a minute. Let me go.
This is part of the experience,
yeah,
right?
part of the experiment. That's all right.
I don't want anybody coming here, right? So we have to. This is part of our experience as family members, right?
Anyway, go ahead. Since they left.
Anyways, so we cannot separate the two. And why is this important? Is that and the question that Lillian was answering a moment ago about why is the tribe important? Because within the tribe, we want that to continue. You want the assistant traditions that need to be passed on. So while I am, and in most situations, I speak for Africans, I was making very clear that when I speak for Africa, I'm starting to speak first as in Seoul, then my region, before it even gets to the continent, because we have shared attributes. But then our culture of, let's say, the dance, how we dance. There's so many shared attributes across how we cook, how we think about ourselves. When we think of, we are the family as a construct. We think of a family beginning with this one unit, then extended to include as far as, as extensive as possible. Because family, so you can break this down in so many dimensions. But ultimately, culture and identity are inseparable.
Intertwined.
Are intertwined.
Okay. All right. Now let's talk about those aspects of our culture that we hold so dear. I'll go to you, Alvaro. You said your dad is from where again?
Salvador.
El Salvador. But you are African American. That's how you tell me identify as. So what aspects of your culture, be it African American culture or from El Salvador, do you really hold dear that you don't want people to take away from you? For me, I'll talk about my culture, the way I dress. Okay. I don't mind if I live in America for the next 50,000 years. I would dress sometimes the way I do. I could wear a t-shirt, like Miss Q is doing, but some days you will see me do this. So that of my culture, please don't tell me to take it away. Don't tell me to stop dressing the way I do sometimes because I want to be African. What aspects of your culture do you really want to hold on to, no matter what people say about it?
So it's kind of different because people, they see me as an African American, and then some people see me as pure Spanish. I hold both cards. I don't separate them. I let people know that, hey, yeah, I'm African American and I am Hispanic as well. I celebrate both cultures. you
What do you
know,
celebrate in
and
both cultures?
uh,
What do you celebrate in both cultures?
and
What do
so
you?
I celebrate African American and I celebrate Hispanic, you know, and Hispanic, they have
Yeah.
so many cultures. And so I try to celebrate those and
Mm,
mix both into, you know, my culture, but I never take away, you know, both traditions. You
mm-hmm.
know, I hold myself firm and to the highest and
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, I am African American, but I'm also, you know, Hispanic as well.
Yeah, that's good. Lillian, I know you're an author, you know, I know I can speak this part for you that you do hang on to your language, Mungaka, the book. I have it close to me here. Her book is Mungaka, the word book. You know, if you are from her ethnic group, you have this book, and for our kids who were born here, for example, they learn how to say things like apple in that language, you know, pear, man, woman, which is very good. So I can say for her that she holds on to her language. Besides that, what is that thing that you hang on to? This is my culture. Don't dare take it away from me.
Language, as you say, is very important, but also our tradition, our customs. You know, we didn't encounter Christianity until the colonizers came, right?
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly we have people in Africa now who have bought into this Christian ideology and Christianity at the expense of our own traditional religions, which are beautiful in themselves. We worshipped before the white man came. We honored our ancestors. And so for me, that is also important. We speak to our ancestors, we pour libation, we do certain things that honor our history and our ancestry in that way. So I'm very passionate about that. I honor that. I celebrate that. I don't actually buy into, because people suddenly, you know, they are Christian, they are Pentecostals, and they start saying, "Oh, we don't want these heathen things." What is heathen, really? You know, that's your great grandfather, your grandfather. You're talking about that way. You know,
Yeah.
you didn't, in Kamala Harris, we didn't fall from an apple tree, right? You didn't just, you know, it didn't, because this Christianity is something we discovered, or that the white man brought to us. So we had our own traditional religions that we practiced, and I think that is important. It's an important part of our identity. You don't, when we pour libation, we don't talk in English.
Yeah, that's right.
You speak in the language, right?
Yeah.
Even at funerals, right? I'll tell you a story. One time I was at a funeral, and it was the husband of a friend of mine. And we were in church. They had done the worship and everything, and then they did the eulogies. And then at the end, they called the patriarch of the family to speak. He spoke, he thanked people who had come, and then he said, "Now I will speak to our dearly departed in the language of our people," because he's going to meet the ancestors. But that was in church, right? And he spoke right there in one of the Bayangi languages, right?
And that language is what the ancestors spoke. So if he's going to meet the ancestors, they have to send him forth in that language.
I started crying. I know it was a funeral, but at that point, we had been in church and I had been okay. But the moment he started to speak in the language, I just got so emotional, because it spoke a lot right there. Yes, because that is, you know, we can speak all the English we want, but there are important ways that we communicate, and we still come back to the language.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that language is integral to our identity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I watched the funeral of Bansom Man yesterday in Ireland. And at the gravesite, the priest gave way for the Saw elders
to pour the libation.
To speak right there on the coffin as he was being laid to rest. And they spoke, because he's now going to be part of the ancestors. So we don't need to do away or castigate our religion, put it down, our traditions, because we have encountered this thing called Christianity, right? There was a dubious way in which Christianity came into Africa, and we should always question that. So I think our customs, our practices, our traditions are very important to who we are as a people. Even the names, right? Around us now, most people don't give their kids English names.
Yeah.
Because, back home, you had to give your child an English name because when you were going to be baptized in the Catholic Church, they needed an English name.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll say,
Mm-hmm.
no, your name is no longer
Mary.
Ngwa.
No longer Ngwa. It's now
Yes,
no
it
man
has
can
to
have
be
Mary.
Peter. It has to be Peter because you're going to be a Christian now, right? So we have to keep celebrating our culture and our traditions in many faceted ways. We shouldn't look on them as inferior just because it's juxtaposed against a white man's religion
Mm-hmm.
that was brought to Africa.
That's great. When you began talking about, we said we didn't fall from an apple tree. Miss Q, you gave a giggle. that told me you had something to say about you, coming from two parents, one from Nigeria and one African American. So growing up in this household of, African parent and African American parent now, what are those aspects of your culture that you held, and you still hold close to? You say your father did say that you are him, you are Igbo, you are from here. But if you were to be speaking to somebody on the street, you'll be like, nah, she's not from Nigeria. So how do you prove it, and what do you hold so dear from your culture that you don't want to let go?
Well, I could say, for instance, here in America, and then also with the city, and I live in New Jersey, and with New Jersey, in certain sections of the city, because I'm from North New Jersey, and certain parts of North that's also by way of other cities that's literally next door. We have a lot of people in New Jersey, in Newark, in East Orange, in different areas of the city of New Jersey, who are there's a lot of Africans are here.
Mm-hmm.
And since I don't even can't remember, I always ask people come up to me, where are you from? First, I never understood what they was even talking about. And I'm like, I'm from here. They're like, no, where are you really from?
There you go.
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I never really had to prove anything to anybody. Probably the how can I say it without being offensive? The uneducated ones who didn't
That's
know.
okay.
The uneducated ones who wasn't really tapped in and think, oh, I'm just from here. Okay, yeah, believe that. But if we go down the line, we'll see that you are from
Somewhere.
Africa, somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But however, and what I would say definitely in regards to, just like with my brother, Bossman, I would say we did both traditions because, again, I love the food, I love the music, I love the dressing, like even what you have on. Oh my God. And again, to me, when it comes to fashion, and even though a lot of people may not think that's fashion, but me being a American woman who is from both worlds, I implement that into my fashion because, again, to me, fashion means how I feel that day, how I want to express who I am today. So if I do want to end up wearing my head wrap, I'm going to do that because that's what I want to do today.
Sure.
And no one will tell me, why are you wearing that? I did somebody say why I'm wearing that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And even just going back just to further, when I was growing up, I used to get my hair straight, get my hair permed because that was the Americanized way.
Exactly.
To straighten your hair. But when I got older, I'm like, I don't like this because that's something that my mother chose to do. That's the side of my American side family chose to do. So as a child, do we really have that much say so? We're gonna go with mommy, gonna say what to do. And then so as I got older and as I got into college, I said, you know what? I'm about to start chopping my hair off. So I start cutting and stop getting perms. And I said, okay, let me see what my hair really looks like. Let me see my really natural curls, because I used to love the fact of my African sisters, how they had their hair and how it's so natural and it's so healthy and it was just so vibrant and long. And I'm like, I know my hair long, straightened, but how is it? So that's when I started doing the natural, and I get so many compliments on my hair. To the fact I had people even asking me, where can I buy that from? I said, baby, this come out my scalp. And on top of that, but also I stayed embedded in the root. My best friend, who is over 35 years, she's from Kenya. She was born in Kenya, but she came over here, I think when she was about maybe 9, 10 years old, and I met her in high school.
Mm.
And her mother, she took me as another daughter, and when they have holidays, traditions, she like, make sure you bring Kwame, make sure Kwame there. Because again, that's another part. Because again, when it comes to Africa, we all family. You know what I'm saying? So her mother took me as family, like that's my daughter. So she making sure that not only did my dad's side of the family make sure I keep that culture, but my best friend family make sure I keep to know what the culture is embedded in it. You know, so they wanted to make sure I don't forget, which I would never forget. But I, like I say, the music, the food, the dressing, and just the fact of the dancing. Oh God! And nowadays, everything, Africa isn't everything. I don't care what nobody say. It is. Even the dancing, what they're doing over here, it comes from back at home from the motherland.
So it sounds like you were really pointing to some influence that African culture has on African American culture, right? But yet the people still make that distinction. Oh, that's African American, that's not African. So let's talk about the roots of Africa in African American culture. Okay, you mentioned people say, oh, that's Kwame, bring her home so we can eat together. That is something that we have in Africa. If somebody sees my child misbehaving, they will spank that child, pull them by the ear, bring them to me, tell me what they did, and I will spank them in front of that other person. So it's a community thing, right?
Yes.
So I see, like you're saying that that's what African Americans also do or did when you were growing up. What other aspects do we see that the African culture has influenced African American culture? Because granted, Shufai said they took you here, clean slate, wipe your identity completely out. But what are those other things that we see that have emerged in African American culture, which are from Africa, definitely? Shufai, you go.
I just wanted to say they tried to.
They tried to.
Yes, I want to be very.
So they did not do it completely.
That was the first step at making people not see themselves as people. And it has not even stopped. You have to think about that. They tried. Did they succeed? No, they did not. They did not. They refused. Okay? So song and dance is a very...
Song and dance has still remained.
Okay.
We still have some of those
even
aspects.
In the midst. And I want to identify even that as our commonality that beats this geographical divide of place of birth. Or when did you get here? Did you get here way back then and you are a product of the ancestors, or did you just arrive? Because when you go back to it, then our shared experience now is that of resilience in the face of adversity. The resilience of surviving the dehumanization, the indescribable aspects of enslavement that people to hang on. And in those moments, with the whip on the backs and with the kicks and with the reps and the starvations, people sang. They sang together. They held on to hope, and resiliency kept them. It's what has kept us. Because think about it. You mentioned that the white man brought religion, and when they came, they wanted to make sure everything we thought about ourselves, including the color, was bad. In fact, we still have women back home today that are struggling with that. They get, chemicals and try to bleach themselves so that they look fairer because black is really bad.
Yeah, I think Miss Q would have something to say about that. There you go with Alvaro.
Okay.
Oh, we all have things to say about that.
And it is in the mind because they had to make sure we don't see ourselves as really equal human beings all along. And so when one of the reasons I am a Shufai here is it is both a traditional leader as well as a priest. So when Leah was talking about those rituals, those sacrifices, the things that we do as we call it ancestral worship, that is our religion. Because we believed in God before the white man came. We believed in God. We believed in the one God. In my language, they call it Nyimbom. We believed in God. And we sang and we danced. The white man did not teach us that. And it is in our spirit. It is in our hearts. And that is why things like jazz, right? The blacks, what you call the African American spirituals, all of those things, where did they come from? The blues, right? It never died. It cannot die. You cannot kill the African spirit. You cannot. And so it stay on. And they have brought it even into Christianity. That's why the Baptist churches in the South, the celebration of Christianity is influenced by their heritage. So when somebody is trying to say this is African and then this is African American, again, who is saying it? Who is trying to bring, again, even at this point in time, in our history, it continues. Looking for ways to divide us, looking for ways to make sure we never together because you people are different. So it introduces the concept of the order. You are the order. We are never the same. We are never one. Right? You are the order. So I am here in my part of my role is to make sure people can have a safe space. Those who cannot go home because of there's a civil war and there's a lot of things going on, they can come and they can do a naming ceremony. I can carry out the rites of wedding. I can do some, those invocations that Lillian was talking about and invoke our ancestors and do those things. And, they are kind of, spiritual things and, which is part of our religion that I can do here in my palace, right? That keep our culture. Our culture should not die because we are somehow now geographically relocated.
I love that. Our culture should not die because we are geographically relocated. Alvaro, talking about skin color, you were like, oh yeah, me. Look at you. You say people don't even think that you're African American.
I like how he put it like that, because my thing is today in society, it's about colorism. And I don't know why, because even if you like brown, dark, it doesn't matter. You're still red inside. We all red inside. We still bleed. And so I just don't get it. I really don't get it. Like the whole skin bleaching and doing and I want to be lighter. I don't want to be darker anymore. I could probably step into more rooms if I'm lighter, or I can do this. I don't want to be this. It all boils down to that, and I still in my mind can't get because it's like we all, if we like, let's say, Q is on the dark side and I'm
We
on the
can
light
have a
side.
whole pillow talk,
If
with the T podcast about this. And I think Q, let's connect and talk about colorism in the African American community and the African community. What drives that and why do we do that? So it's a deal, right? Q, we will do that.
I think,
yeah.
The issue that colorism stems from race. And within race, there's a hierarchy of races, right? The white is at the top. And then if you're light skin as close to the white as possible,
you're next in line.
You're next in line, right? And so now if your own racial category is really coming down at the bottom, and your perception now is that in this hierarchy of race, you're at the bottom, how do you get to the top? You try as much as possible to look like.
And it's becoming a thing. That's a whole topic. I really love it. Yeah.
And there's also standards of beauty that go along those racial lines, right? And when people internalize that, they now want to go up the racial hierarchy. So those racial hierarchies is what is help preparing this. And we suddenly now define beauty standards by what we perceive as this superior race. And if I turn my skin color into something that is up there, then therefore I am beautiful and acceptable within this society.
And look at Miss Q right here. She's a plus size model. I went through your Facebook page, for an hour looking at something. Like, you do so well for who you are and the way you present yourself. You don't need to be what let's get into that. The media representation of who we are as Africans or as African Americans. Do we feel like the media really does represent us for who we are? Shufa, you talk about, you know, you being here to represent the fun and all that. Now you're doing what he expects you to do. You're doing like the mini of what he is doing in the grand style back home. Do we feel like the media represents us as African or African Americans the way that we want to be represented? Like I said in the beginning, nobody mentioned race when you define your identity. So when we go to the media, there's always, Kamala Harris is a Black woman. You know, she's not Black, she's Indian. Does the media do us justice as Africans and African Americans in representing us?
No, they don't do us they don't do us justice at all. They actually hurts us. They actually take, and the thing is, this is a thing that I don't like about many people, especially American people, is they take what they from the news and think that, oh, since the news is saying it, it's automatically right. It's automatically facts. It's automatically set in stone. When again, to me, that comes off as a weak-minded individual stating that you going to take what someone say because it's on television and you going to decide to let it to be a part of your brain and mindset. No. And this is why I'm very adamant when it comes watching the news. And I grew up with a grandmother. My mother's mom used to watch the news around the clock, and it's like, it's a trigger for me. I'm sorry, it really is. It's a trigger for me because I'm like, you could watch. She watched other things, but I'm like, come on. I don't want to hear every day, all day about what the bad stuff and about the media. And again, they segregate it. It's like they working to continue to segregate and separate us, and they don't do us justice, especially when it comes to the beauty standards. Because again, I'm in an industry where me as a woman, a lot of people wouldn't think it's beautiful, my size and my skin tone.
That's correct.
As well as my hair. They will want me to have the straight press and curl all the way out, all silky and smoothie. I had that, but that's not what I wanted. That's something that it was not.
That's not who you are.
That was not who I am. That was something that my mom put on me because that was something that was embedded into her. So me growing up to be my own individual woman, I'm like, nope, that's not who I am. That's not what I want to represent. That's not what I want to come out the house to be. And then again, the media will say, oh no, plus size, dark-skinned woman. That's not what the beauty of American standard is. You must be a size 4 or 2, skinny, tall, and light. And this is what I fight for. So many of my sisters from, I don't care where you from, they tell you love who you are. You love the skin that you are in. You tap into your confidence and you walk out your house bold, beautiful, courageous, and you make sure that you let people know when you walk into the rooms, don't forget who you are. And you ain't got to do it disrespectfully because again, I walk into many rooms because even with what Boss Man just said, a lot of people think that they can't get in, like Lillian said, they can't get into certain rooms or certain areas because you're dark skinned. I never had a problem walking and getting into any room.
You made it that way, but the media doesn't make it that way because the media will tell you, like you just said, that to be beautiful, you have to be size 2 or size 4, tall and a certain height, and also light skin. You know, but you made it that way. But yeah, the media doesn't really make it that way. Look, there's something that Lillian put in our chat group. Lillian and I went to broadcasting school in Cameroon, and you put something so profound. You said that if somebody says it's raining outside and somebody says it's sunny outside, your job is to go and look. To see what actually is before you report it.
Facts.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. That's the
best way to do research. Go ahead, Shufai.
You know, this is so important that first I want to applaud you, Mabel, for this show. As you know, anyone in communication would know who is saying it and for what audience, right? And so the media, historically, who owned the media? So the perpetuation of whatever idea or ideology that suits particular sets of people and particular demography or economic ideas it's nothing new. Okay, and this is very important that you are doing this, and I like that, Kwame, that you have your own talk show, that you have that. We have got to be defining and taking control of who is defining us for our own people. Right? We cannot wait. And that's why I love Obama so much, because we are the people we've been waiting for. Who is going to do it for us? Because historically, they don't want us to shine, because shining means it's as if we're taking something away from them. Of course we are, because they've always made it that the white is as far away from the black that we were dumped into as far as possible. But here's the funny thing. Then they go out and they try to tan. Okay? They go out and they want to be tan. They want to become darker. And they tell us
it's called tanning, right? They want to
exactly.
No, it's not becoming blacker, it is tanning.
Yeah, no, it's not black, it's tan.
No, it's tanning. But when it is you, no.
Oh, you see, you're black.
That's not good. That's not good. You don't look right. Okay, so I really, really love this, and I want whoever Alvaro, you're doing your own thing, that we continue to do that, and you are following in the footsteps of our people. You have the Langston Hughes, you have the Zora Neale Houston, you have James Baldwin, you have Toni Morrison, you have all of these. Maya Angelou, right? Back in Africa, you have Chinua Achebe. Our people have been standing up and questioning this definition
of who we are by other people.
Who we are. And these attributes that they lump on us, just to make sure that they divide us and separate us and make sure we don't feel good about ourselves. And so we reach out and try to look at those things that they make it so that we aspire to them. Let me share one historical example. There's one thing that people say, and my wife will say, why do you dislike the French so much? I said, I don't dislike French as a people, but I dislike what the French did to Africa. In fact, it was shameless in the policy of assimilation.
Assimilation, yeah.
They set out to make sure you know that you are nothing, but you could be something. Okay? If you forget about your culture and you learn the French language and you try to dress like them, and you even not only learn the French language, you try to speak with a Parisian accent. Okay? Then they can then bless you with French citizenship.
Yeah.
And make you now a human being. That is France for you. And they have not gone away. They are still in Africa.
But you hit on so many points in your statement, which I'm glad you did, because you opened the door. And I love this because over here in America, and like he was saying, in regards to them trying to say that we're at the low of the low, and they're trying to sit there and say this is what acceptable, and saying that for us to not to be proud of our culture, our heritage, and our music and the different things. But let me call a thing a thing. They are, and like he said, they're tanning to be close as they possibly can to be our color.
Yes.
Which ain't gonna happen, but okay. Then they're going into surgery to get the booty that we was already built and created by our ancestors. Then they want to go and get the lip ejections to get the full lips like we are. And then let's not even say they want to start talking our dialogue and saying that. And then everything they're doing, they're trying to say that they're dig. No, you're stealing it and you're copycatting. But we understand everything we do is duplicatable. But remember who is the original. Because they also did, and was not Kim Kardashian trying to claim that she created braids? Girl, stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, she definitely stop. Because braids did not come from you, baby.
It's
That was
appropriation of
Africa.
the worst possible.
But again, we have to pay attention. We have to wake up. We have to realize and see that they want us to be ashamed of it. of our own self, our own skin, our own
Mhm.
culture, what we come from. But they want to take it and they want to call it their own. So that just, it's a compliment to us. So that just shows us that let's wake up, guys, and say, like, we're doing the damn thing because we have something that they so badly want that they're actually going to kill themselves for it.
Well, I see we've talked about this bad media portrayal of us, right? Is there a future in the African and African American identity if we still have this kind of representation? What can we do to ensure that in the future, you know, because if today you and I are talking and feeling this emotional about it, what about our children's children when AI will be controlling everything? So how then can we ensure that this identity stays? What can we do? So far, you have a plan already. You're doing that where you are, but how do you ensure that when you are not there, that next person can do that wedding libation, can do that funeral libation, can even listen to couple problems the way we do back home and try to solve them? How do we ensure, how do we sustain this African and African American culture for posterity?
Good question. And you're already doing it. And we right now, we're already doing it right here. And we should not take these little things lightly. Whatever you are doing, Alvaro and Komaya, whatever you are doing, we should need to be very intentional. Remember what I said? You are the people who've been waiting. If we feel this passion about it, then we need to speak up and speak up with power and pick up unapologetically. Okay? When somebody sees me like this and then they say, "Oh, where are you from?" I say, "I'm from Eden Prairie." And they start laughing. I say, "Oh, no, I just mean," I say, no, what did you mean? This is my country.
Yeah.
This is my country. I am home here and I've come to stay. And I'm staying with this. As you see it, this, and I'm very clear about that. I said, "Did you mean to ask about the origins of what I'm wearing?" And I was like, "But remember, today is not Halloween. This is not a costume." I'm very clear about those things.
I know that's right.
I am very, and I speak up. So I don't miss a chance to go and educate, because education is truly the key. And we owe it to ourselves and to our families and our children to make them proud of who they are, truly to make them proud. Because, as you said, AI is taking over. There is what is called AI governance and, you know, AI with responsibility. Sometimes I get contracted, gigs to write and to try to train AIs, but it's going to take all of us. If you're working in technology, wherever you are, it is communications, speak truth to power, unashamedly, unapologetically. Be very clear. What you're doing with your hair, what you're doing with, in terms of your fashion, and what it is, you will define. Start with the person, proud to be who you are, and then share that and call it as it is. What I like about Kamala and what is going on is she brought person into this political environment. Did he just say that? And actually laughed at it. Right? We cannot make fun of bigots, but we have to make fun of what they say very clearly, and we cannot let it stand. Because part of it is we are very respectful. We are very like, oh, we are, no. We can no longer let it stand. If it is a lie, we call it out and say it as it is. We owe it to ourselves to do that. So yes,
so speaking up is part of the way.
Like, and we need to prop ourselves up. If Mabel is doing something like this and it needs to be promoted, so people can come and learn, then they share it. Kamaya doing something like this and it's providing education, then let's share it. Let's share it. Let's share what our brothers and sisters are doing. Remember, in our languages, we don't have cousin.
Everybody's a brother.
Everybody
is
a brother and a sister. Cousin is a white construct. That's why my wife said, "Is this really a blood brother?" I said, "No, we are brothers, and that is, we don't have cousin." Think about that in our languages. That is who we are. Let's not let
I'm yet
anyone
to find a language, an African language that has cousin.
That has
don't
the
have-
word cousin, yeah. Yeah, no, it's all brother or sister,
Brother or
right?
sister.
So Brendan, sorry, Shufai, I hear you. So the way for us to preserve some of this our cultural identity from African American is to speak up, like you say. Are we therefore afraid that we might lose some aspects of our culture? I am afraid. You know, I haven't passed on to my children my cultural language. So when they have children and their children have children, what will happen to what they speak?
Yeah.
What are you
I
afraid to
think
lose when it comes to this culture?
I
Alvaro,
don't think that the culture would never go away.
some aspects, I
And it
mean,
would
it
be
might never go away, but some aspects of it. What aspects of it do you think is going to go away? I think the language should go away. I'm talking as an African now.
Yeah, the language I definitely agree to because I don't speak the language. I may understand just a tidbit here and there because again, my dad accent was thick, man. And again, for us to communicate, I had to understand, even though he definitely he came back every 3 times of a year back and forth, but I would say with my bonus moms that would keep the language and they're trying to teach me when I do go back home. But it's very, it's like it's another whole world. It really is. And I feel like the language will be a jeopardized in regards to my side of that family because my son, he doesn't speak the language. My son is 23 years old and that's his grandfather. When he have kids, like you say, they're not going to speak the language because I didn't know the language to be able to teach him the language, you know. And again, that would definitely be something that would be a big jeopardize.
Big loss, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, thanks to people. Go ahead.
I want to chime in on that because I'm telling you. So my dad wasn't around us a lot. And he speaks Spanish all the way through. And so when he speaks, I don't understand, but it seems like the words are coming to me. It's installed because it's in your bloodline. So of course those words are going to come to you and you're going to understand some. You might not understand all of it. You're definitely going to understand some of that language. That's why I say I don't think the language, yeah, it might update, but it's never going to go away. You know, you're definitely going to understand. You might not, like I said, you might not understand all of it, but you're definitely going to understand some of it.
Okay, so maybe take back the word go away and go to what Miss Q said about jeopardized. It'll be jeopardized because Lillian or Ashufai, if you go back 2 generations from your parents, when your parents spoke, there was no word for cup. There was no word for, I don't know, pen. They had to use a descriptive language to tell you what those were. And so I think books like the one that she has, you know, this is from Lillian, Mungaka word book. My kids can say, oh, my mother was from this tribe and honey was, you know, they will say it was spelled D-U, but how do they pronounce it? It's been jeopardized. Yes. How do you pronounce the word? Okay, let me say I'm not from Mungaka. I don't from Mungaka, Lillian, but I will say this is do. Is that right?
Do. Yes.
You said do, I said do. You know, so then it will be jeopardized. At some point, we're going to lose ourselves because, you know, times do change. So the narrative would be for us to do things like this, record them and keep them. When your children's children come across, they say, oh, it's not due, it's do. Then it comes to you now, like Alvaro has said, that's the right way. But again, it has been jeopardized.
Right.
Yes. Even in the face of that, right, I think there are many things we can start doing to preserve and to protect those languages from dying. One is developing resources. One is making sure that those languages are alive in terms of being spoken. Teaching our children, it's not difficult. When I had my son, we were in Canada at the time, and it was just me and my husband parenting. We were new to parenting. But I had a resource place I used to go to for early learners and for new parents. And the one thing I've never forgotten is at that resource center, it's called the Ontario Early Years Education Center or something. They said, speak your language to your child. Oh, really? Speak your language to your child. And so every day we spoke the language to him, right? Mm-hmm. Even though he was just a baby, and you would never know that he was absorbing it. So every day I'm giving him a bath, I'll tell him the body parts. This is your eye. I'll say in the language, this is your ear, this is this. And you know, when he started speaking, one day he just sat in his bed and he started naming those parts in the language. So it's doable, right? We need to speak the language. You need to develop resources. Mm-hmm. There's a lot that's, there's social media now. There's multimedia resources that we can tap mm-hmm. and make use innovatively to preserve our languages. Mm-hmm. Document things as much as possible. Mm-hmm. Make use of the elders that are around today to document aspects of our culture, to document our language and how it is spoken. Right, because the way I speak it now is not how my grandfather spoke it at that time. Also, in Africa, come up with policies that can enable us to use those languages in education. It doesn't make sense that children will grow up in Batibo or Bafut and speak the language there, and then when they go to school, it's English. We need to be able to bring those languages into the classroom mm-hmm. and use them there. Our music as well. We have a lot of folklore music mm-hmm. That we can promote and preserve using the multimedia and new media tools that are available today, so that in future generations can be able to access that and listen to it as well. Mm-hmm. So I think there are many ways we can do. There are many mounting challenges, but there are also ways that we can come up with to protect and preserve those languages and our culture.
Lovely. Yeah, lovely. We have about 10 minutes. Go ahead, Q.
And I definitely, I agree wholeheartedly. Absolutely. But it's also challenging. For instance, my dad left out the house when I was about 5. So I didn't grow up in the house with him all my whole entirety of my life, because at that point, my mom and dad got separated. So I would say definitely for the listeners who are listening, when you make, in my case and scenario, because I don't think it's that many, but when you do have an American mom and an African dad, I would definitely say that for the African parent, do your best to definitely, even though you're still in the child's life, but not in the home full time, do your best to either just send them some audio, send them some different type of resources, or just or give them maybe 3 to 5 words each week that they could practice and put embed into their sentences when they're speaking to you, when you're calling them on the phone and stuff, or even when you go visit them or they come and visit you, and you just have that, you creating that dialogue. Because I definitely agree, starting from the womb is where we should start. From the womb, let you guys start talking to the baby, because the baby could hear inside. Because like with my son, I started teaching him hearing different things, alphabets, ABCs, all that. So that's why his development was so fast than a normal child. So when it comes to that African culture, just start it from the womb and then keep it in the household. Because even though, like Lillian said, in the schools, they talking to them in English, and I have a lot of friends who are Spanish, who are African, who are even Indian. I have Indian friends and from different places of walk of life, and they go home.
They speak their language.
They speak in their language, but when they come outside, they speak in American.
They flip it up.
Yeah, so I would definitely say for people in my situation, my circumstances, that have 2 different sets of parents, definitely make sure that African parent, please do your best to make sure you send those resources, speak that native language tongue, and be able to at least give him or her at least 5 or 7, 3 to 4 words every week, so that you could build up that momentum of they speaking that second language native, because it's useful. It's very much useful.
And it's beautiful. Yeah. It's beautiful. Anyway, let's talk about yes, go ahead.
I want to put a positive spin on the challenges we are facing. Right. I know Komaya used the word jeopardized, and we've already been jeopardized. The coming of the colonialists and those who claim they discovered Africa I mean, how do you discover something that's already there, right?
We were not there, they discovered.
Right? It's already happened. Okay, they brought religion and forced us to close our eyes to pray, and then they took our resources, and they are still taking those resources today. So a lot has already happened. I want to borrow from Kamala Harris and say, let's turn a leaf, right? And by turning a new page, what we're saying is we are accepting the change that has already happened, good or bad. And say, we are here right now. So what do we do? In the midst of this history and culture that we live in, which is diverse, in all of this, what do we do, right? And it is accepting the fact that our languages have also got to evolve. We've already evolved. Forced by circumstances, we've evolved. We are not, they tried to kill us, but we did not die. We are here right now. And so if a language, there are going to be words that are not in our languages because things change and all of that. Just like the English language, there's no error. You go to now to the new editions of the English language, you're going to see error. Right? You will see words that they've, so just like us. So our language have got to grow with that. We adapt, and that's one of the key things about us as Africans. I'm not talking African American or African from Africa. No. Us Africans and all of us Africans. We are adaptable and we are resilient. We capture those things.
Adaptable and resilient.
And grow. Now we have the resources that Lilian was talking about. Let's leverage them. I want to challenge, you, Lilian, as somebody in communications, you've already done some work in the language. Start a YouTube channel in which you're doing a children programming, right? In which it is like people can tune in. Every Mokata person can tune in and say, today we're doing 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Now, if it is my language, it will be more batar kwetan, right? Learn how to count. And let's do it with fun. How do we even dance? In my house, you can see drums behind me. Mine is in music and in my religion and all of that. Let's make sure and what about you, Meba? Right? Some aspect of this program should be some aspect of language. Anything that we feel is going to be lost. Komaya, in your programming, those things you're passionate about that you were just talking about, it should not end here. Invite those who can come and talk about that and create those resources. Same with you, Avaro. What are you passionate about that you're afraid is going to be lost? So that we are not only thinking it, we are doing it.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. You know, I mean, as Mercy says on Facebook, that culture and identity can evolve as well in a personal and ethical standards. There are some aspects of some cultures that with time we reform, either as individuals or as a community. That's where it evolves.
Culture evolves. It's not static. It's not static. There are things, there are practices in my culture that are really no longer being practiced because we look at it in a different context.
Right.
Now. You can imagine, like years ago, many years ago, twins in Nigeria were dumped in the forest, right? It's no longer the case. So culture evolves. And that's because we're used to see multiple births. You know, like, oh, you have 2 kids at one time. Yeah. So culture evolves. It's not static. So there are aspects of our culture that do evolve with time and people knowing things better.
The last thing I want to talk about here is misconceptions. I'm glad that we are all here. Avaro, if you can stick with us, I'm like, let you come back before I talk about this. Misconceptions. I'm so glad that we are from different, we identify differently, you know, African American. What are some of the misconceptions that, let me start with Avaro, that you as an African American grew up holding about Africans? It could come from the media or from your pals. What are some misconceptions that you've held and known about Africans?
I don't want to say that I don't have no misconceptions. I think we're all just alike. You know, we all have different journeys and aspects of life. I really don't hold
none from the media. The media you haven't heard like maybe Africans live on trees. That's something from the media, or you see a National Geographic channel. It's all animals.
Because I heard too many people on TikTok, especially American ones, talking about all Africa live in villages and huts, and I said you're wrong.
Right, right. I want that, yes. I
Yeah,
hate
whatever
when
you've
they
heard.
say that. Like, oh, Africans this, they do that. Like, don't get me wrong, like everybody thinks that African eats African food all the time. It's that's
They
it's
eat
no
what?
African food all the time. No, you know what I'm saying? They eat different
See,
food. It doesn't have to be African food all the time. But they pick the sure, like, oh, they eat this, they live in this. They like I had said, they work on this. No, and like my sister said, everybody don't work on the field. Everybody has jobs, careers, they build, they work just like us in time. So we can't always paint the pictures and like, oh, they're doing this because we see it, like you said, on TV. TV is TV. But when you step outside of TV and you go to the real world, you will see it in your own eyes.
mm. But you haven't been to Africa, so how would you see it in your own eyes? So you just hold that misconception because that's what you see on TV. Let me go to Kwame, who grew up in a household where father African, mother African American, but I know that you must have heard some misconceptions about Africa. Tell us about some of them.
Yeah, so my misconceptions was the fact of every everybody was lived in a hut when I was small. The misconception, the fact of the commercials what kills me. Those African children commercials, which even to this day make me cringe. Because they make it seem like everybody is homeless and poor and living on the street and living in a hut. And I'm like, that is not even the conception of it all. Just like even in America, we have homeless people, we have, different urban bad neighborhoods, but they also have beautiful waters, beautiful land, beautiful property. And like so many people was really surprised when I sat there and told them that my father lived in the fucking mansion. And they was like, oh, really? I didn't know they had that. I know they had that. What do you mean that you ain't know they had that? So that means that you need to stop listening to the news or wherever you got this misconception from and start doing your own research. And this is why I say stop being brainwashed and start doing your own deep diving or your own research. Because even then my brother said about the food, trust me, the food is better than here.
And all they eat is African food. How bad is that? Is that a bad thing?
And that's all they eat is African food. And I was like, so what? So today, I'm like, I come from both worlds.
Yeah.
Right.
It's time that it's time we blend it together. We have like a whole spread of American and then let me be very specific. When I say I'm from American, my mother's mom is from South Lake City in Florence, South Carolina. So that's Southern food. Not just regular New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Boston. We're talking about that Southern South Carolina. And my grandfather was my mother's father from Alabama. That was Southern food. So then mix it over here with my African grandparents and dad. We got all amazing of the fufu. We got the
all kinds of soup.
The soup. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Girl, you're so mixed up.
I'm like, listen, I'm tasting it right now as I'm talking about. It's just so much. And then my son, and that's how I was able to introduce my son to the different African culture of the foods because we had the different spreads. And he loves the peanut butter soup. He loves, oh my God, with the different things, how they do the oxtail. He loved his fufu. He loved to eat with his hands, stuff like that. So, and I tell people, you cannot think that's all they're eating and this everything. Because I'm like, they have regular great grocery stores down there. They could buy different things besides eating African food all day, every day. And this is what I had to also educate some people on TikTok about as well. Because baby, I don't know what's happening. But those are the misconceptions I grew up with. But also as a grown woman, I'm also hearing other people even sitting here and saying.
Yeah, let's flip the coin, right? What misconceptions that we Africans have held about African Americans? But to chip in before I go to the other side of the coin, When I first came to America, I was surprised to see some potholes somewhere because all we had seen growing up in Africa was that America has skyscrapers. There was no way where you could even see somebody homeless on the street, talk less of you're walking and there's a pothole with what, like this is, there are some places in America where if you take a picture and send to your family in Africa, be like, no, 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 you're not in America. You know, so the beauty of the country that we see on the media is also, you know, what we think it is, and then you come to the reality. That's not all fine. I tell you, somebody had asked me if I had a car because I got here as a young adult, no driver's license. And I said, okay, I'm taking tomorrow off to get my driver's license, you know, to go take the road test. And the person said, well, you don't drive? I said, no. And then she looked at me, she said, do you have cars in Africa? And I said, no, we just ride on monkeys. You know, I couldn't bring my monkey here because it wasn't allowed to be brought to America. So I had to transition to cars. So I had to start learning. She looked at me like, you know what? So there are so many misconceptions that people have about Africa and vice versa. So Lillian, what misconceptions do you have about African Americans, or have you had or even heard
before, right? Gangsters. Gangs. Right?
Gangsters. Oh, that African American gangsters.
Yes.
Yeah.
All the rap music and things was, you know, gang. African Americans were all about gangs, drugs, and those kinds of things. But then on the other hand, we also watched Cosby Show, Different World, and what was the other one? Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. We watched that, back home,
So we saw that on TV, and we saw African American families
living good,
education. You know, I remember a different word, Hillman College. I want to go to a college like that. You know, so there was also that aspect that we grew up saying that, okay, you know, African Americans, Blacks in America live like this. They have this kinds of families. They have these kinds of aspirations. But we also had the rap music, which we listened to, that some of the lyrics were really not, you know,
appropriate.
They were not quite appropriate, and the things they said there, like, okay,
that's how those people are.
Talk about women this way and that kind of thing. So those are some of the misconceptions that we had, and then we come here. So some of us come with that kind of idea into the society, and then we experience differently, right? Some of us have good experiences, some of us had bad experience.
That's right.
But the point I wanted to make is that within American society, which is something I brought to the attention of friends and family when we had George Floyd happen, and we had a Zoom conversation, which was called a fireside chat, to talk about race. And I told a lot of my Cameroonians that, look, you might sit here and think that, oh, yeah, you're just African, this doesn't really affect me. But I say, in this society, you are seen as an African American, and it is, you better accept it or not.
That's what she said.
This could have happened to you, because when a police sees you, they don't see, they just see a Black person.
That's it.
They don't know whether you're African, or you're African American, or you're Haitian American, or African Caribbean. They just see a Black person. And within this society, that is who you are. So we need to pay attention. We need to be more conscious and aware of that identity, whether we like it or not. We like our African identity, but within this society, this is how we are seen.
African Americans.
So when we accept that and we become more conscious, we see that there's more that unites us than us being in our little corners.
So true. Yeah.
As Africans or African American, because within this society, there's a bigger, thing that is dividing us. That we need to focus on and work towards dismantling.
I like that. That's why when you look at the check boxes of race, they always say Black or African American. They don't say Africans or African Americans. They don't say Cameroonian or Nigerian. It's Black or, so we're bundled together. We have no choice but to live together.
And those boxes still exist. Which for us is new, right? When we come, that is something we have not seen in Africa.
No.
Like you have to tick a box.
Yeah, no. We never check boxes back in Africa. You're like,
for race and for ethnic group and that kind of thing. You would not fill a form somewhere and then you have to tick a box that that kind of thing.
Shufai,
It is for us.
Wow.
Shufai, what were your misconceptions, or what have you heard about African Americans?
I think this is a very wonderful conversation. And I know we are going above time here, which is, I mean, we can talk about this for the whole day. I want to applaud what everybody is sharing here.
Mhm.
I had a very unique, kind of view, in the sense that I got to do African American literature as part of my undergraduate education, such that I was passing the music and what the teacher was showing, plus what I was learning in the classroom. And I had the fortune, I was opportune to be taught by Cameroonians that had studied here and then come back home and share experiences. Now, my perception in reading the literature and studying the history was that these are people that are so together, and they had to be that together to withstand, the ravages of enslavement, as well as the civil rights movement. They had to be that together. And so when my view of African American was these people that are so together, and will go out and march and be beaten by dogs and clubbed down and shot and killed. So, but when I got here, what really was streaming off was the black on black violence, right? Because that was not my perception of these people that I admired so much. Because I was like, I wish our people could rise like that against the colonialists. I wish we could be like our African American
You saw them like who were resilient.
Yes. So I was touched by that. And then some things that has already been said about the fact that we are one people, and I really want to continue to say that, is I want to be very clear to every person from Africa that is the recent immigrants, that some people really, really want to identify themselves as different, right? They are very clear, no, we're not African Americans, we are Africans. And it touches me, and it's especially when they do that with disrespect. And I want to address that, because we owe it. We owe it to our African, and I want to use the word African American. I don't see them as African, I just see them as my brothers and sisters, right? But we owe, just to be very specific, to our ancestors, the African American ancestors who fought with this society now that we can even come in. Is the evolution, is the political experiment, finally realized? No. I was mentioning the civil rights movement and what they went through, that now we can actually be called people, and that can vote, that can continue to demand racial equality. What they went through, we are supposed to bow down to them, really, with adulation. That they created this space that we have. It is unique in the world. You can live from Africa and go to Germany. You're not going to become a German. You can eventually become a German too, but you will not have the rights and privileges in the way that we have it here as now the Black people. There is no country in the world that welcomes people and give them the right to be who they are in the same way that we have. But it came from our African American ancestors.
It sounds to me like you did not really have much of a misconception, because you had this historical background of African American before you came to America. And even when you got here, you still had that study of African American history. So then that really helped set the pace for you when you came here and got to know them better. You did not really have much misconception about them.
It's just a matter of, is the black on black violence that is that, and I just touched on that very briefly because I don't want to dwell on that, because that has already been politicized. Right? That you say, oh, you're talking about, the white police, shooting them down. See how they by themselves, they're shooting each other. you know, and that has already been politicized, and I didn't want to dwell on that. That was the only part that was like, oh my God, no, that is not who they are. These are isolated incidents, right? It doesn't represent people.
Okay.
I want to touch on something that he talked about, that when Africans say they don't want to be called African American, and they do that in a very disrespectful and demeaning way, most often it's not that they don't want to be identified, it's just because they have a negative, image of African Americans, that they don't want to be identified with things like drugs, or I'm not an African, because exception within African community that's common, it's not often said, is that they see African Americans as lazy, right? There is that misconception. So you not wanting to be identified is, I don't want to be identified with this lazy people, which is unfortunate, right? We should be, like I said earlier, that we are part of this society. And I think it's important that when we come here, we take time to educate ourselves as well about the African American experience. Read books, I spend a lot of time reading and trying to understand that experience, so that you don't make ignorant statements like that, because you don't understand that history. So take time to read and understand what 400 years of slavery has done to African Americans in America, what Jim Crow has done, right? I read The Warmth of Other Suns. That is a fascinating book.
The Warmth of Other Suns.
I got it's quite thick. It's like big like the Bible, but it's a good read. It traces and gives you a history of how African Americans moved from the South to the North during Jim Crow. So people moved from Mississippi, to Detroit, where you find pockets of African Americans in the North. You can trace where they came from the South. And that book really gives you an outline of how they moved, why they moved. And you can begin to understand the challenges that they faced in this society, right? So I plead with my fellow Africans, educate yourselves. Don't make ignorant comments and statements. Because again, at the end of the day, we are all in this society looked upon as African Americans. Those distinctions that we are making here, we make when we come within our own. But in the eyes of the majority white nation that we are in,
we are all Black people.
We are all Black people.
Yes. We are all Black people. And even the drug thing that you mentioned, Lillian, just very briefly, it's been created to paint the picture of African Americans as drug addicts and drug this. But when it concerns the white, it is an opioid epidemic.
A different name for a different person. You know what, Shufai? That is a topic we shall talk about.
So true.
I know now I have to bring you back to address some things that you just mentioned here today. But I want to thank you all so much for taking the time today, Sunday, to be on Talk to Me Africa. The one last thing I want you to share with us is a proverb. I always call it African proverb, but with Alvaro, I'm not going to say African proverb. Any proverb, any saying that you want to share with us today, go ahead and do that. Do you have any, Alvaro?
No.
You do not. Okay, that's fine. Let's go to Lillian. Any African proverb?
Oh, yes. My people say, okay, that literal translation of that would be, your behind is your butt. Okay? But it's a way of us saying that your people are your wealth. Behind you, what stands behind you is people. And that is your wealth.
Say it again in your language. You're behind
is your butt.
Yes.
But it's to say that your people are your wealth.
Yeah, and your behind is very important. How do you
Yes.
sit otherwise,
Yes.
Thank you. Shufai.
Thank you, Lillian. I actually, my inspiration now is coming from you, right? I had something that was very generic, but now, thank you. That inspired me. And I will share this one. Ayi fin shu fai ada ke vongrin. So and I'm using that one because of now when they made me, when I was coronated, my compound became a palace. When I say I finish fire, it means the door of the palace, because our palaces are actually like churches, right? Very welcome. Kebvongren is not a lock; it's just a way to hold the door
in
so
place.
that it is in place, but anybody can open and go in. So I finish fire, which means, and it's very, it's typical of the hospitality and the welcoming that we are as a people, that just all are welcome wherever you are coming from in your journey of life. You are welcome in my palace as well.
I love African proverbs.
I have to come to that palace.
Yes, please.
Eat some kiban and UCG.
You are, of course, you are welcome.
Oh.
Yes.
I want to thank you again so much, everyone, for coming here to talk about identity. See, the earrings I'm wearing were given to me in church today by my pastor's wife. And coincidentally, you know, she didn't know about the show. So she said, "Hi, neighbor." I go, "Hi, I'm leaving. Let me give you a hug." She goes, "I have something for you." Someone gave me this earring, but I said, it's more of an African identity. I thought about you. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't have any black earrings. So thank you so much. So I think that, you know, our identity comes to us the way we portray it on ourselves and the way that other people see us portray it on ourselves. Because it wasn't just from an isolated, you know, mind that she said, oh, she thought about me with these earrings. It's because of the way that I had made known my identity to her and to the public. So let's keep preserving our identities and let's continue being who we are. Thank you so much for being on Talk to Me Africa today. I'm sure that this talk about identity and culture and who we are is not over yet. Hopefully we will do it again. Thank you. Have a wonderful Sunday.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you for
Yeah.
having us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.